Welcome to the Only Fools and Horses podcast.
Ah,
Mike Martin,
glad to
how
be
you
here.
going? How's it
Yeah,
going?
good.
So you was an extra in The Longest Night and also the Jolly Boys outing.
Yes, also a couple of others around the same period. There was the Stag Night one, which was a studio recording in the February of '89, and there was a brief appearance with my two young sons in '91 when Raquel gave birth. So we were just sitting in the hospital corridor. Yeah, so those are the ones I recall. Yeah.
Favourite episode? No, it's quite obvious, Mike, really, but what was your favourite moment or favourite episode?
What, to actually work?
Yeah, which one you enjoyed the most?
Well, without a doubt, I would say Jolly Boys, because it was just like a paid holiday. It was great. 2 weeks in Margate in wonderful weather. The sun was out all the time, I seem to remember. We were on walk-on contracts, which means that we were on 100% repeat fees as well. So that's been nice and lucrative over the years until recently, when it's just shown on the terrestrial channels now. So it's peanuts now. I can't complain. It's been wonderful over the years. Jolly Boys was a great social time. I was working with a lot of people who I knew anyway. A lot of the Jolly Boys, we'd worked together on other productions. So apart from just the setting and the pay, and it was the social scene as well. It was great to be down there. I mean, we'd film all day and then we'd party all night. It was great.
Hey.
Lovely days.
It sounds like when we spoke to Jeff Stevenson. Do you remember that, Chris, when he was talking about To Hull and Back? It was just a bit, that episode of Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah.
Well, it was just like a big party, really. He said he was in Hull for a couple of weeks and they were just out on the Raz all the time. It sounded great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what it could be like. Also, I mean, not every production over the years is a happy ship, but I always got the impression that the Only Fools and Horses production crew, everybody involved with it, the cast, it was a happy ship. It was a happy show to work on. They were all friends and having a good time. They knew they were involved with something that was very special. And well, we all knew we were, but I don't think any of us had any idea at all of what it would become. Of course, it's become like a religion now, hasn't it? It's an iconic thing. It's amazing. I mean, recently I posted up, as you probably know, a few photographs on the Appreciation Society site, just a picture that I remember being taken, started it off, but I hadn't seen it ever. And that appeared, and I reposted it and just said, "Oh, I'm the Jolly Boy kneeling down on the left, with the yellow coat and the Union flag hat." And it just exploded. It got about 800 likes. It's got I don't know how many questions and comments. And then I did a similar one with the shot from Longest Night when I'm just seen over the shoulder of the shoplifter. And
Lennox Gilby, yes.
I'm sorry, I should have known that. And and that had a very similar effect. And so it's just gone crazy, really. And it's nice.
I had some fun the other night, sorry, Mike, where I was watching Jolly Boys out and I always had fun watching it. I was trying to locate you on the bus, and am I right in saying you're behind Mike on the bus? Is that right, near the front? Mike Fisher, the barman. Would that be where you were with the yellow jacket? Do you remember?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. The yellow
so you've got
jacket.
Quite a few good shots there, haven't you?
Yeah. Of course, when you think, as is the nature of anything to do with filming, you do so much work, you're in so many things, and of course when the final thing comes out, most of it's on the cutting room floor. So you got 2 weeks work and you're on there for about 12 seconds. That's quite normal, really.
But what an episode to be in. I mean, the Jolly Boys outing, it's probably the best, or it's one of the best Only Fools and Horses episodes, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan myself, of course. Always was at the time, still am. I actually haven't seen Jolly Boys for years. I must get a copy of it. Actually, it's crazy.
If you get a copy, Mike, get a Blu-ray copy. That particular episode's on Blu-ray now. It's fantastic. It's like it was filmed last year. You know, the picture quality is unbelievable. Really good.
Terrific. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, obviously I was trying to spot you on this particular one. And then when they're trying to get Denzel to drive the bus, aren't they?
Yeah.
We think Harry's drunk, the bus driver, but he ends up, it's fumes from the radio. There's a good shot of you then, actually, when Denzel's having a row with Del Boy on the coach, because you're at the front of that as well, aren't you? So,
yeah, I remember that. And the thing song, Beatles numbers, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, it was Help, wasn't it? That was one of them. Help.
That's it. Yeah, I remember.
But it was Bananarama, wasn't it, that was singing it?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And sandwiches, handing out the sandwiches. And David Jason nearly hits me in the head with a box of sandwiches. I remember he turns around and just missed.
Yeah, they take the mickey out of Denzel with his disease, don't they? And all the coach erupts because they give him like a bell, don't they? And
yeah, unclean, yeah.
Unclean, yeah. And you could see you laughing your head off. Probably laughing your head off because you had to, but probably because it's funny as well, obviously, as you know. So.
Yeah. Oh, you froze up a little bit then, did you know? I missed.
Oh no, so I suppose you were laughing because you had to, but also because it's funny as well. I bet there's a bit of both going on. Natural, genuine, yeah.
Like I say, it was genuinely a good time. I would say for certainly 95% of the time, it was a happy shoot and a happy ship. Yeah, it was a good time. Glad to be there.
Do you know one thing I spotted on Jolly Boys outing, and you might be able to clear this up for me now? I don't know if Chris or Emily's ever noticed this. You've got obviously the coach scene. They're going to Margate.
Yeah.
You've got all of them on. All the actors are on there. They do the little scene. The first time I can see Boise is when you're leaving the halfway house. I can't see him on that coach. Do you remember if John Challis joined a bit later? That particular show, was he? Because when you go into the halfway house, he's not shown at all, even in the background. It's quite strange.
Right, and he probably would be if he'd been there. They probably would have used him, I'm sure. I couldn't tell you 100% for sure. Obviously, I remember him there a lot. Obviously, he was there for most of the time. The main cast, I mean, various members weren't necessarily used every day. So the chances are that they went back home for the day, possibly. I don't know. But they were all there for most of the time, I would say, yeah.
Who do you have most to do with, would you say, out of the actors?
Well, you know, it's we were the background people. We were the walk-ons. I mean, most of them were pleasant enough, particularly David Jason, actually. I mean, he's the consummate pro. We didn't really see anything of him really outside of the actual working hours. He went back to the hotel. He kept to himself. But that's fair enough. But he was very approachable, very nice. Always had a lot of time for his public because we were surrounded by the general populace of Margate and Ramsgate all the time, understandably. Had a lot of security around, so they were keeping people away. But, you know, when people, you know, did get through to the main cast, most of them were absolutely fine with them. I do say most. David Jason, without a doubt, was the nicest. He's a real gentleman. Yeah. As for interaction with we walk-ons, the nicest, I would say, without a doubt, was Paul Barber, Denzel.
Yeah.
We were actually where most of the main cast and the main production crew were staying in the hotel, the Marina Hotel. The rest of us, with a lot of the production people, were staying in some apartments that were alongside, you know, facing the front. I think there might have been half a dozen of us in the apartment I was staying in, but it was very nice, very comfortable. And Paul Barber was actually staying in that same block, I remember, because I remember one morning we looked out and he was sitting on the balcony drinking a beer on his balcony, and he went, "Oh, come down, boys, come and have a beer," which was great. So we did. About 3 or 4 of us went down, and he was very welcoming. Yeah, nice fella. Yeah, and we spent the morning drinking beers with him, and I think we worked that afternoon.
Great. What
Nice
about John Sullivan? Did you see much of John on the set? John Sullivan, the writer. Would you have seen him much there, or?
Well, he was around.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, obviously, probably most of the time, and yeah, so he was around. I can't think of any particular experiences with him. He was nice enough, pleasant, courteous, approachable, but the nature of the work, because I did a lot of walk-on and extra work through the 80s and 90s particularly, because it was like a supplement to the income, because I'm a musician, an entertainer and a writer essentially. But anybody in show business in those days who had an equity card would, as a rule, supplement their income by doing this kind of work, because you actually had to have an equity card union membership to do the work in those days. It's not the case anymore, of course. Hasn't been for over 20 years, but it was the case then. So I digressed then. Sorry, what was your original question? I went off the track there a bit.
It was John Sullivan. I was just mentioning John Sullivan. You had much to do with John Sullivan on set, but you said he was there and things in the background, and
yeah. Well, he was. I think. Oh God, I've got the phone going.
That's all right. Answer the phone if you like.
Give me a second.
Might be David Jason. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
No, it was Steven Spielberg.
So you said like there was a big police presence when you were filming. So for instance, when you were on the beach, did they completely close it off? I suppose they did, didn't they? The whole beach, pretty much.
Well, not completely, because if you can see, I mean, obviously we Jolly Boys are there with the cast, and we do that run across the beach. And as you can see, it's like a normal day on the beach. There's quite a few people around who were taken by surprise, as I'm sure you can imagine.
So they weren't all extras then. They were people of the public as well.
It's the public there who suddenly found themselves amongst the Fools and Horses cast. They were quite excited, as I'm sure you can imagine. Now the point I think I was trying to make just now about interaction with main cast and people like John Sullivan and that. If you did a lot of walk-on and extra work, if you were going to be professional and decent about it, you didn't hassle the main cast. That was part of it, really. That was being professional, really. So as long as they were just courteous to you and acknowledged you, that was enough for most of us. Fine, The last thing they want is for the cast to be hassled by the background people. So I think most of us appreciated that. But, you would find yourself in situations where you might find yourself in conversation with them if the time was right, if you're queuing up for a cup of tea or something, or just sitting about. So that was the case. I remember John Challis was a decent guy. We had a few laughs with him. Nicholas Lyndhurst was all right. A little bit cynical, though. He had a little bit of a cynical edge, Nicholas Lyndhurst. But once again, we're all different.
So with that shot, obviously Nick Lyndhurst kicks the ball, and then what they do, they obviously throw the ball at the officer, do they, or something? But how does that?
Yeah, they just throw it up. And one of the assistants just threw the ball at him. Yeah,
Rude Gullet.
Well, Rude Gullet, he said, actually. Rude Gullet,
yeah.
Rude Gullet nowhere, yeah.
It reminds me of football commentators, when they get foreign names wrong. I remember in the 90s, another ex-Chelsea player, instead of Roberto Di Matteo, they used to call him Roberto Di Matteo and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a great scene, isn't it? And it's just so funny the way he ends up getting arrested for such a small thing.
Yeah. Funny. It's great. Yeah, I've got to get a copy of it. I say all this interest in it again over the last couple of weeks. I must see it again, because I only ever used to see it when it was repeated. Did
you do some scenes at Dreamland as well, at the theme park? Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, they. I remember we had lunch that day, and they said to us all, "Be careful how much you eat because you're going to be spending the afternoon upside down." They said. Right, okay, so so I was a bit wary. I hung back a bit. I'm not a great fan of fairground rides at the best of times, so I hung back a bit. So I was on a couple of rides because they shot a lot of stuff there that obviously wasn't used. But yeah, I mean, there was the
Mary Rose, isn't it, Mike? That goes
Mary
upside
Rose,
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have been on that, but I stood back and I managed to get away with that.
And David Jason
would have been for hours.
David Jason famously gets away with it as well, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, a few of the guys, you know, they just wanted to push forward and be on everything. So, but,
I wouldn't have fancied it either, to be honest.
No,
Emily, do you like rides like that?
So I get away with it. So.
What's that, Emily? Say that again.
I can't go on rides because of my heart, so I get away with it.
Oh, right. Well,
you're lucky then. I usually get lumbered into it, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I'm the worst person to go on rides like that. I close my eyes. I don't look. There's no point.
Well, even as a kid, I didn't like big wheels and switchbacks and all things like that, and I used to get put on them. Go on this, have a good time. I used to hate it. Bloody upside down, spinning around. No, it wasn't for me. But anyway, that was obviously I was there for all of that, and yeah, there was a couple of things I went on, you know, rides, dodgems, things like that, the shots that weren't seen anyway.
There's a roller coaster, isn't there? There's a roller coaster they go on that we see.
Yeah. I went on that, I think, if I remember right. Yeah, I was on the roller coaster at one point. Because because of the nature of filming again, you know that if you get in something like that, it's not going to be one shot and away. You know they're going to do it over and over and over again. And it's going to be too much when you've had the big BBC catering lunch. It's always nice.
So when would it have been in '89? It was summer. What was it? Early summer or?
I can tell you exactly. I have my old 1989 diary here.
Oh, wow.
Look at this. The first day was May the 4th. Thursday, May the 4th. And the call was at 2:00 at the BBC TV Centre. And they took us down to Margate. And the call from the apartments where we stayed at the Marina Resort Hotel was for 6:30 in the morning on the Friday the 5th. And that was the start of it all. And then they took us home. We had a day off. But they brought us back again on the Sunday. 7:30 a.m. at the Marina Resort again. That was when they took us back down to in the coach, in the famous. That was on Monday the 8th. Called at 7:45 in the morning. There was another. But then there was another travel day on Saturday the 13th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there were 7 days straight through. And I remember during that week, there was a little bonus because the BBC technicians went on strike for a couple of days, which meant we were just stuck in Margate, still being paid, which was nice.
Terrible.
And so, yeah,
yeah,
great. And and so the group of us, I think about 8 of we Jolly Boys, decided to go to France for the day. So that was nice as well. Wow. Just went across on the ferry. Courtesy of the BBC. And also, not only that, I see that they gave us 2 days extra expenses in cash as well.
Wow,
lovely jubbly.
Worse days.
Lovely jubbly indeed. Those were the days.
Lovely jubbly, yeah.
Well, I don't know, I don't think.
No.
Thursday, the there was a delay, of course, with that strike. But on the Thursday, that was when this is the 18th of May, we had the night shoot. And that was the railway station scene that I mentioned with Uncle Albert. Yeah. And then the next day, it was all over.
So they did it in chronological order then, really. The last scene you did was the actual train station scene at night. That was the last scene you actually did.
Certainly the last one I was involved in. I know that I think it was a couple of weeks after that was when they did all the nightclub scenes with the Great Raimondo and everything. And I think they were done at the TV Centre back in London. But I'm not on those. I'm not in those scenes. I don't know why, because a few of the other Jolly Boys are. I think I would have been offered it, but I must have been committed to something else. That's all I can think of, because most of the other Jolly Boys were employed. In fact, I know my brother.
They're in the Mardi Gras, are they? In the club, the extras, do you mean?
When it's the nightclub scene with the Great Raimondo.
The nightclub, they're in there, are they? Some of the extras.
Yeah, you do see some of the guys, some of the Jolly Boys in there. But like I say, I wasn't. All I could assume is, because I probably would have been offered it, I must have been doing something else, I suppose. Because I remember it was quite difficult to get, when I was offered the job by the Dolly Brook agency of the whole 12 days, which turned into 14 days shoot. I know I had to get out of a couple of things to be able to do it. Things that I was booked on for other agents, but because it was so much work, the other agents were kind enough to release me. They wouldn't always do that, but they did on that occasion. And I'm so glad they did.
Yeah, and it's great you've got a record of it. I mean, that's a very detailed record of what happened.
Yeah, I've got all my diaries from then. I mean, in the same year, as I told you, when is it? February? It's February.
I know Liverpool-Everton FA Cup final would have been around that time, actually, in '89.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh God, I've got it here somewhere. I know it was February of '89 when we did the. Yeah, here we go. Sunday, February the 5th, '89. Fools and Horses, 2 p.m. BBC TV Centre, and I've even got here. It's a pub stag do. Bring a change of top. Right. And so that was the scenes with Jeff Stevenson doing that. And it's funny, I knew Jeff by reputation at the time, but he's actually become a really good mate of mine since, and I see him quite often. He's on the cruise ships mainly now, working all the time.
Yeah, he was one of our first podcasts, wasn't he, Chris?
He was. He's been in. He was in that episode, like you mentioned before. He's in To Hull and Back as well as the policeman, wasn't he? Parker,
yeah,
I think he was.
That's it. Yeah.
He used to do the warm up show. Am I right in saying that, Mike? You know, before on the live shows, it's like a warm up act, wasn't he?
Yeah, loads of TV warm ups. Jeff did and still does when he's in England, which isn't very often. He's mainly on the cruise ships these days, except for the previous 2 years when there weren't any cruises, of course. But he's back on them again now.
So really, the only episode you did with a live audience would have been the Little Problems episode. The others were like on location. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, very much so. Because I think that Longest Night episode, that supermarket's a macro, isn't it, or something? Ah, there you go. Yeah,
there you are. Yeah, we can see that.
Longest Night. Yeah.
What was Vass Blackwood like? He's had quite a good film career, hasn't he, since then?
Yeah. Well, you say what was he like? I mean, he was all right. What could I say? I remember that shoot. It was a very handy shoot for me because I was living in Leytonstone at the time, and it was in the local Leytonstone Leo's supermarket. So it was literally 5 minutes up the road for me. Very handy. Oh, yeah. And it was a Sunday, so they closed the supermarket for the day, and they just had a group of us there as shoppers, and and that was all very nice. In fact, I remember I got recognised in the local Chinese takeaway when that episode was on. I remember by coincidence I happened to be in the Chinese takeaway waiting for some food, and that episode
was on.
Then and I remember the lady behind the counter. She did this double take. She, "Are you? Are you?" I said, "Yeah." And anyway, she went out the back, and all the kitchen staff came out. We're all looking around the corner. It was funny.
Well, that's a hell of a coincidence, though, isn't it? You're on the telly as you,
wow. yeah. I didn't plan it; it just happened. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I know Vass was saying that was obviously filmed on location, and that is in front of a live audience when he goes into the office upstairs, isn't it, in the supermarket when he pulls out the gun. That's when the live show kicked in, didn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So our scenes were just when he's going around taking all the stuff off the shelves, and they were just getting some reaction shots from us, weren't they? And that was it.
Would you get royalties for, say, DVD sales and video sales, or is that a bit different when they do that? You know, if you get, is it just for when it's on the telly?
No, we still get something for DVD sales every now and again.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Obviously,
yeah, it's like
nothing like what David Jason would get, obviously, but
no, but it helps.
It's still a few bob.
And it's like, you know, with the bar scene where David Jason falls through the bar. We've talked about this before. The barman, he gets a lot of checks because he's seen in that scene so many times, isn't he?
Of course, yeah, he would.
Yeah,
he would. The way this system worked at the time, the equity walk-on contract was you would get 100% of your fee every time it was repeated on the main channel on BBC One, right? So whatever the rate was at the time.
Oh, I see. You got paid whatever you got paid on the day. On that, you get every time it's shown again.
But better than that, it went up pro rata. So if it was shown now, well, of course they don't show it on BBC One anymore, do they? Sadly,
no.
Yeah. If it was shown on BBC One now, I would get whatever the walk-on one rate is now.
Yeah.
And of course, it was like 14 days' work, which is quite handsome, you know.
Yeah, wow.
So over the years when it was repeated, I was getting much more for the repeats than I actually got paid for actually doing the jobs.
Wow.
Which was nice, yeah.
But UK Gold isn't quite as lucrative then. Once it's on there,
no. In fact, it's Halfpenny's.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, literally. Yeah, I mean, you know, literally.
Is that because they repeat Only Fools and Horses all the time, or is it just a different?
No, it's just anything. I mean, you know, a lot of things I did at that time that get shown on UK Gold and things. It's the same situation. Yeah. I mean, you know, glad to get anything really. It's
yeah. After all these years, I mean, so how long ago was Jolly Boys off the top of our heads?
1989.
Yeah,
30 years. Yeah, 35 years, 33 years. Yeah,
about 33 years now. Actually, we're nearly in May, aren't we now?
Yeah. Happy days indeed.
Would you say that? What have you done other comedies, Mike? Where else have you appeared, sort of thing?
Well, I think I was on most things that were being shot at that time. I don't know, To the Manor Born. Do you remember that?
Penelope Keith. Yeah.
Heidi High.
Heidi High. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
What about Blackadder or The Young Ones? Maybe.
You know what I did? I actually did the pilot episode of Blackadder, the very pilot episode that was never shown. But I was on that. Yeah.
Oh.
I remember it well.
Why was that never shown then? That's interesting. Do you know?
It was just the pilot. I mean, any new situation comedy that they do, they always do a pilot in front of a studio audience. And maybe it didn't work, possibly. And they tweaked it a bit. before they actually made the first show. I mean, that's the whole point of a pilot, really, to see how it goes down.
Oh, is that seriously what they used to do back in the day? Because now with a pilot, it's usually on the TV, isn't it? The first episode.
Well, if it's going to work,
Yeah.
and it's then, and it's the case now.
Oh, they still do that, maybe.
So it's a case, you know, if it works. I mean, I remember it. It seemed to be all right. You know, if you remember, the first series of Blackadder was very different to what it became later on.
I always liked it, to be fair. I liked all of them. But
I liked it very much. But the Rowan Atkinson character in the first series is a bit of an idiot.
Whereas Mr. Beanie, isn't he? Mr. Bean, perhaps that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, then they made him really smart and
and they made Baldrick an idiot, didn't they?
And they turned him into something else. Yeah. So that changed. I mean, also other shows from the time. God, you know, we're really going back in history now. I mean, I even did things like George and Mildred. I don't know if you remember that. In fact, I remember feeling really old when I got a repeat fee for George and Mildred. It was amazing. That was Eutha Joyce and Brian Murphy. I did things like Robin's Nest, but, you know, I'm talking about sitcoms from the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Did you not have a meal in the Fawlty Towers Hotel? That would have been a good one.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, I never did. No, I never worked on Fawlty Towers because it was they shot that before I started doing the work. I started doing it in '79, but the Fawlty Towers were mid-70s, weren't they?
They were. Yeah.
And of course, the location shots were Torquay, but most of it was done in the studio at the TV Centre. I knew a lot of people who worked on it. And one friend of mine, Oscar Peck is his name, and he was only about 14 at the time, and he was on that show as a boy with a parent, not the obnoxious boy who complains about the wrong shaped chips, not that one.
Oh, not him.
There was another boy in a shop in Fawlty Towers, and that's Oscar. And he's done fantastically over the years from that. I mean, you can imagine how much Fawlty Towers around the world and DVD sales and everything. And I had another friend who was stretcher bearer, I think, came in with Sybil and took her away. And he's done very well as well, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
But it's changed a lot now. Like I say, I haven't really done the work for many years now, but it was always a very lucrative and handy string to the bow if you had an equity card. You know, because you needed an equity card to do TV, walk on and extra work, and for film work you needed the Film Artists Association card, which I also had. So I did a few films as well. So it was very handy. So the business, well, I don't even know what it's like anymore, but certainly very different to what I knew back in my day.
So why did that change, you know, with the equity card? Like you were saying, like you'd need the equity card. It doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, because Margaret Thatcher smashed the unions. Basically, she took away because the union control was getting literally out of control. You know, the unions were holding the country to ransom in the 70s and 80s, and she did stop all that. You know, it's and one of the last bastions of union membership was equity. You know, and that was smashed as well. In the end, you didn't have to be an equity member to do the work anymore. You didn't have to be a union member to do any work eventually, you know.
No, I always wondered about that, actually.
Well, that's how the world changed, yeah. I mean, equity still exists. I'm still a member to this day. And they're very helpful for lots of other things as well. But in the sense of, you know, the power of the worker with the union behind him and her, you know, that's all gone now. you know, like I say, different world completely now.
But like you said, it was kind of, don't want to get into politics, but it's like it was kind of a double-edged sword, because you'd also have a lot of strikes back then, wouldn't you? And you know,
Yes. I mean, there were equity strikes as well, you know. But now extra and walk work. I mean, it was starting to happen in the tail end of when I was doing it. Excuse me, I've got hay fever.
That's all right.
All right. Yeah, it's like open to anybody now, which is fair enough, I suppose. Anybody who's doing a normal job and takes a day off, which is fair enough. But, you know, people would say, well, it's only extra work, walk of work. You're just hanging about in the background. You know, you might be asked to do a little bit here and there. I mean, I had a few parts in things, but generally you're just there dressing the background. But where they have come unstuck is if you do get sort of ordinary members of the public doing it, it's all very well when they're first there, because the glamour and novelty of seeing a big film set, seeing the stars, that's fine. But that soon wears off. And if you've got a 12 or 14-hour day ahead of you, they found that people who weren't doing it professionally were soon getting really peed off with just hanging around and you know, and not coming back the next day and things, you know. So in that sense, it made more sense to use professional people because, you know, they acted professionally. But anyway, now it's been open to anybody for 20 years now, and they seem to be coping all right.
And you mentioned you were a fan of Only Fools and Horses before you did extra work. What was one of your favourite episodes or one of your favourite moments from the show?
Well, the classic ones, really, that everybody speaks about. I mean, how could it not be? Obviously, the chandelier, you know. I mean, that's one of the great comedy moments of all time, isn't it? Del falling through the bar is another one. Classic. Oh, God, what else was iconic in Fools and Horses?
Blow Up Dolls was good, wasn't it?
What's that?
Blow Up Dolls one was classic, wasn't it?
I mean, that's hysterical. That just has you on the floor, doesn't it?
Batman and Robin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, how could I forget that? Yeah, I mean, the dolls popping up behind the sofa. And when he's walking out, arm in arm, and good evening. And
Emily, what's your favourite funny moment?
Oh, there's that many, it's hard to choose.
Go on, choose one.
It's not a big funny moment, but it's one of I find funny when Rodney's in the computer room at the printer when he worked with Alan.
Yeah.
And he was on the PC and he wiped it twice. And then the young guy was like, "Is it meant to be on my PC?" And then, yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah, of course it is. He says they don't know they're born or something, doesn't he, Nick?
Yeah.
That's Jolly Boy's outing, actually, coincidentally, isn't it? That.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, there's so many great one-liners in it as well, isn't there? And I mean, one of the many fantastic things about the show, and that's really, really impressive, is the fact that the whole thing was written by one man. I mean, you look at American sitcoms and you've got dozens of writers, and then you've just got John Sullivan, who did everything himself, didn't he? I mean, it was just amazing. And originally just a BBC prop man, wasn't he? And
yeah, scene shifter, wasn't he, or something? Yeah,
that's right. And I used to speak to a lot of the guys who'd worked with him during that period, and they said, people used to take the mickey out of him, thought he had delusions of grandeur when he was like shifting the scenery, and yet he had all these ideas for shows and things, and people said, "Oh God, you're kidding yourself." But because he had a couple of successful sitcoms before Fools and Horses, as I'm sure you know.
Citizen Smith, that was one.
Was big, and of course the what was the one with Paul Nicholas and Jan Francis about the
Just Good Friends.
Just Good Friends, yeah. I mean, both of those series were great as well, and and then for him to take on Fools and Horses and sustain that level of writing and comedy ideas for so many years, and you know, always consistently good, wasn't it? And it wasn't only the comedy; he had that great talent, which is a rare talent, of blending it with the drama of tragedy as well, didn't he? I mean, there's Steptoe used to be the same. They used to have marvelous moments in Steptoe where they blend, you know, the comedy and the tragedy, and it would work really well. And you've got to be really skilled to pull that off. You've got to have the right cast, of course. Where everything fell together so well with Fools and Horses, with the casting, everything. I mean, a classic example is when Grandad dies, isn't it? In the early ones, Leonard Pearce, and how they pulled that off, I thought was just brilliant, because they still kept it funny even with the tragedy of Grandad dying, and the real classic moment, isn't it, where the hat is on the front of the hearse. Do you remember? And and Del Boy just takes the hat, he throws it into the grave, and then the vicar comes out and says, "Will you see my hat?" I mean, that was just fantastic, wasn't it?
I even like the bit of the wake where Rodney's like to Uncle Albert, he's like, "I'm never going to be happy again." And then Uncle Albert's like, "As long as you're happy, son."
Because Uncle Albert gets introduced in the same episode, doesn't he, there? Yeah.
God, and I mean, what a career he had, because he'd been a bank manager, hadn't he? And only in amateur dramatics he was in, wasn't he, I believe? And of course, Fools and Horses comes out of the blue. Crikey, what a late success in life that was for him. Terrific.
Yeah, that was very interesting as well, because at the time they were umming and ahhing what are they going to do, obviously, after Leonard Pearce sadly passed away. And apparently they were going to use a woman to begin with, but then David Jason and Nicholas Lyndhurst said it wouldn't work because you can't say to a woman, "Get in the back of the van," you know. So, yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I do love the early series as well. I mean, what were there? 3 series with Grandad or more?
There were, correct? Yeah, first 3 series. And he was doing the 4th series, Mike, wasn't he? The one where
they had to change everything, didn't they? Yeah,
that's right.
Hole in One.
Yes, Hole in One. Yeah, where he falls through the bar latch. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, he was a lovely actor, wasn't he, Leonard?
Oh, yeah. We have that discussion all the time. Who do you prefer, Grandad or Uncle Albert? We can never decide, but I really loved Grandad. I thought he was...
I wouldn't like to put them against each other. They were so different, weren't they? I think they were, weren't they?
Like picking who's your favourite, your mum or your dad, really, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, Grandad would sit there with those lovely, just sitting, "Oh, Del Boy," you know, and he'd come out with these lovely laconic lines, wouldn't he? And it's just brilliant. He'd sit there quiet for ages, and then he'd bring the house down with a line, perfectly timed.
What if you got a Wendy house?
Yeah. They always called it a Wendy after that, didn't they, Emily? When there was a funny line. So,
and of course,
Wendy,
40.
Yeah, 40. Yeah. That one.
But then, of course, you know, Albert, he had a hard act to follow, but he pulled it off perfectly, didn't he? All those lovely things, you know, and all the kind of running gags as well during the war and all that going on. And you remember the German girl who and he said, "Speak a bit of German." He's, "What is your name?"
What is your name? Yeah. What is your name? Yeah.
He's having me on here, isn't he? Del Boy says.
Yeah. So beautifully observed. All of it was fantastic. And I think overall, I always loved it. You know, I always loved the series all the way through, like, you know, so many of us do. But in a way, for me, my most favourite episodes were the first series, because to me it was like great that it was just like the 3 of them against the world, working the streets and all that. And it changed, you know, when they got girlfriends and things, and they started through necessity, obviously, because they had to think of new ideas all the time. And then the plots started getting sort of quite outlandish, didn't they? But it's okay, you know, it didn't matter. It still all worked, didn't it? Yeah,
but it's kind of like we do in life, really. I mean, it's like sort of like you're with your family and you're with your mates, and then obviously you meet a girl, you get married, you have kids, everything. So
when he starts getting mistaken for mafia leaders and all things like that.
Yeah.
But it's still funny. It still works, and that's all that matters in the end, isn't it? And
that's actually Sir David's favourite episode, believe it or not.
Miami
twice.
Maybe twice. Yeah,
I think it's because he played two different characters. That's why he said he enjoyed it.
He stretched it. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can understand that, but yeah, just for me personally, I liked it when it was kind of smaller, but doesn't like it when it got bigger, because I certainly did. Loved it. Yeah.
Well, Chris, you always say, when did you think the peak was? Jolly Boys Outing, didn't you? And
I think so. That was when it was getting better and better with each series, and then I think Series 6, weirdly, you're in that one as well, as you mentioned, and then I think Jolly Boys was the ultimate peak. I thought, yeah.
How long did it run after that? How long did?
I think it ended in 2003. I think.
All right. Okay. Quite late.
But there was a break, wasn't there, in the 90s?
That's right. They did have a break. The last ones were specials, weren't they? I don't think.
Yeah. I love that. I love the last original three, though. It's Modern Men, Time on Our Hands, and the Batman and Robin one in the middle, isn't it? Yeah.
Heroes and Villains. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That was the first one, I think.
Really classic. Yeah.
All of them were brilliant. Well, they're all brilliant, but I mean, I think, like we said before, though, what was special was when they could make the episodes like 50 minutes instead of, what was it before, 30, wasn't it? Or,
30, that's right.
That would be the classic time format for a sitcom, yeah. But yeah, having the specials, then he could cut loose a bit, couldn't he? I mean, obviously, eventually John Sullivan had a lot of power because he was making a lot of money for the BBC, so he could call his own shots eventually, and he earned it. And so tragic that he died so young. I mean,
he just had his anniversary. I think it was 10 years, Chris, wasn't it, since his death? We posted, I think last week. Yeah, I can't believe it's 10 years ago.
Well, who knows? He might come up with another classic by now. He had the talent.
He was doing, I don't know if you've ever seen him, Mike, he was doing Rock and Chips, like the prequel, so when Del Boy's quite young and things. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, they're
different, weren't they?
Good efforts, aren't they? I mean, obviously David Jason are very difficult shoes to fill, aren't they? But yeah, they did a good job with those, I think.
He played it really well.
Yeah. I'm thinking that maybe you've already seen it, but I haven't yet, is the West End musical. Have you seen that yet?
Chris has. I want to see it. I expect Emily wants to see it as well.
Yeah. And it's because it was, well, obviously it was on
Paul Whitehouse, isn't it? Paul Whitehouse has written it.
Whitehouse is granddad. Well, I'm a big fan of Paul Whitehouse anyway, so and he does a marvellous job, apparently, doesn't he? I hear.
Yeah, brilliant.
Does Albert as well then? Is that?
It's predominantly Grandad, but there is a cameo of Albert in there as well. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, he does both parts actually. Yeah, Paul.
But you said it was interesting because it's based on the episode Dates, isn't it? And it's Uncle Albert, isn't it? It's not Grandad. In the TV
original
show. Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
So I didn't know that. Okay. All right, and hasn't John Sullivan's son had a lot to do with it? I believe, hasn't he? Is he?
That's right. Jim Sullivan has. Yeah, I think John was in. That was what his project was. I think when he died, actually. So there was notes and things. And
so he took up that, right?
Yeah, Jim took it up with Paul Whitehouse. Yeah. So, but I say I have been twice, but I think me and Chris are talking about going again, aren't we? So,
well,
I'd like to go. Yeah,
I really must get to see that. It's a pretty hot ticket. I think it's quite hard to get.
Yeah. Still, yeah, and I think it's October. I think it's supposed to be finishing in October, so yeah, it's not long to run.
I was a bit dubious at first, just because I couldn't imagine different actors playing the parts, playing the roles. But I've heard so many good things about it. I want to see it now.
Absolutely, yeah. I've heard that they're excellent. I mean, it was the same with Dad's Army, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. They remade episodes of that, and they had the film, didn't they? And they had a great cast, terrific cast. I did see the Dad's Army film, and I thought it was a noble effort, and they all did well. But my overriding feeling was, well, leave it alone. It's what it was. Should have maybe just left it as it is. The classic stuff that it was. It's like Paul Merton remade some classic Tony Hancock episodes. Don't know if you're familiar with Hancock.
Hancock's Half Hour.
Yeah, from my era. I mean, Hancock was a genius. I love Hancock, and Paul Merton remade 2 or 3 episodes. I think about 20 years ago now, using exactly the same. Yeah, The Blood Donor, which is a famous episode of Hancock, and Paul Merton, huge Hancock fan, and he went and remade these things as a tribute, using exactly the same camera shots, exactly the same script, trying to recreate every movement. But a noble effort, but the feeling in the end was, well, what for?
Why wouldn't you watch the original?
Hancock, you know.
It's a bit like remaking The Godfather or something like that. You couldn't do that. No.
Yeah, have Mr. Bean playing Don Corleone. That's good to convince us all.
Would they be live with the Hancock Half Hour? Would they be live at the time as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not pre-recorded.
Yeah, absolutely. They were all in the studio, and Christ, we're talking a long time ago now. This was like late 50s, early 60s, black and white. All the sets are shaking and that, aren't they? Mm-hmm. But Hancock famously, he had a car accident, and he couldn't learn scripts afterwards. He lost his ability to retain words, so he always used cue cards just off of camera. So if you do after that for the rest of his life, including the Blood Donor episode, so if you ever do see old Hancock episodes, you can actually see him reading his lines. You see him to the side and his eyes going like that, just looking over the actor's shoulder. And I mean, it still worked, you know, but it's an interesting thing when you know that's what he's doing. It's strange.
Sir James was in that, wasn't he, as well, of Carry On Films? Was he in that?
Yeah, he was. Originally on radio. But Hancock sacked Sid James and Kenneth Williams because they were getting too many laughs. It's true.
Yeah, I get that, though.
Kenneth Williams and Sid James often spoke about it afterwards. And he even sacked his writers. You know, Gorton and Simpson, the brilliant Gorton and Simpson, who did Septo and Son and everything. He sacked them. I mean, talking about shooting in the foot.
Yeah.
Hancock just fell apart after that. You know, he could never accept the fact that he was great in his own right. He wanted to be more. He wanted to be Peter Sellers. You know, Peter Sellers had gone on to international stardom, and that's what Hancock wanted. And he was never quite able to grasp it in the same way. But if he'd just accepted the fact that he was brilliant in what he did anyway, everything would have been fine. But then he ended up committing suicide, of course. So tragic. All that success and talent, but it wasn't enough for him. Such is life sometimes. But I think David Jason has been very happy with his career, hasn't he? Christ, he can't have any complaints, can he?
Not really. He's done everything, hasn't he? Some Darling Buds of May, Touch of Frost.
Yeah. Well, not everything.
It's different programs.
Yeah, not everything he's done has been hugely successful, has it? But you can't win them all, you know. No. But he's a brilliant actor, not just for comedy, as a you know.
But it'll always be Del Boy. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, that's it. When you've got something that iconic, you know, you're never going to shake it off. And I'm sure he's accepted it, and you know, he knows. But then again, you know, he is remembered as Frost as well, pure drama.
And Granville.
Granville, yeah.
Granville, of course. And because I didn't think the Open All Hours worked very well when he came back older. For me, it didn't really work.
Miss Ronnie Barker, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's certainly capable of pulling it off. He's a very skilled actor, but you know, it's just, and that series he did where he was like an elderly security man or something. What was that? One series that disappeared, didn't it? What was that?
Yeah, was it Diamond Geezer? Was it? I don't think it was Diamond Geezer. No, he did.
I've heard of that one. I've never seen that one. But yeah,
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, one of the favourite things he did, I thought, which was pure drama, and I thought he was brilliant in it, was that First World War thing where he takes It's Gallipoli, isn't it? Where he takes all the workers from the estate, Sandringham estate, to war, and they all get killed. They all get captured and executed.
I haven't seen that. What's that called?
All the King's Men.
Oh, okay. I have to check that out.
Yeah.
So totally different, serious acting.
Oh God, yeah. It's really tragic because he's so proud of his men and everything. They were all workers on the estate, and they all join up in the First World War, and they go out, and he's all so proud of them and everything. And then it ends up with this terrible scene where they all get executed one by one, and him as well. He's crying, "Oh, my boys," and it's a brilliant performance from him. Yeah, All the King's Men is called. It would have been about 15 years ago, I suppose. But you'd find it on anywhere, wouldn't you, I suppose? Be on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, Netflix. Yeah.
No, not that long ago then. When you said about it, I was thinking, it'd be a long time ago. But yeah.
Well, I'm just guessing. Probably about 15 years. Yeah, certainly one of the things he's done since. Anyway, because he's and what was that thing he did on a submarine as well? That was like a 3-part drama.
I'm not sure on that one.
Where it's about a haunted submarine. Well, anyway, if you look up David Jason, it'll all
Well, that's mentioned in a book that I was reading about him, about a submarine.
Yeah. Well, it's I can't remember a lot about it, but it's very intense drama, and I think he's the captain of the submarine, and it's a haunting of the submarine or something. It's quite weird, but once again, him stretching himself, after Fools and Horses, I suppose he just wanted to stretch himself, and do all that. God, what the Mervyn Peake stuff he did for the BBC as well, didn't he? There's been so much.
And his brother's an actor, Arthur White, isn't he? His brother.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about him though.
Weirdly, his brother I think's older, but he was called Trigger in Touch of Frost as well, which is a bit more of a coincidence. Yeah, but David's real name isn't Jason, is it? It's David White, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
But the David White character, because there was someone who was called David White. He was the guy in Bewitched, the older man who was Darren's boss in Bewitched, if you remember that, with the white hair.
Okay.
He was David White, so he had to change his name, and I think he had a love of Jason and the Argonauts or something.
Oh, Christ.
Jason. So that's why he used Jason, yeah. Is
that right? Oh, I didn't know.
It's called Ghost Boat.
Ghost Boat. That's it. Well done, Emily. Yep, Ghost Boat. There's it. Yep.
I recognise the picture a bit now. Yeah.
King's Men. Is All the King's Men showing on there as well?
I'll have a look. That came out in 2006.
What? Yeah.
A while ago. Yeah.
All the King's Men.
I was gonna show you this as well, Mike. Do you recognise this at all? Can you see that?
Oh, is that one of his? Was it Czechoslovakian CD players or something? What is it?
It's radio. This is what caused the coach to blow up. Yeah, it's a replica of the radio. Yeah,
that's right.
I have got the Kylie Minogue LP as well.
I should be so lucky.
Yeah, that's the one. Do you know when you're on the coach? Is it moving? I know that sounds stupid. Is it actually moving, or do they have like a?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just moving when they're filming it.
Yeah, because we travelled to the Roman galley in it. Yeah.
It looks like it's moving, yeah, but sometimes they have like a scene in the background, don't they, when there's cars?
Emily's found that, just that.
I got that. Oh, yeah.
It's on Amazon.
Right. Well, honestly, I would really recommend that. I think, apart from Del Boy, I think it's the best thing he ever did. It's fantastic. No laughs in it, but it's brilliant. Brilliant.
It's $6.99 on Amazon.
Right. What year was that, Emily? Does it say the year?
1999.
Oh, as long as that. Oh, so still doing a couple of Fools and Horses after that, then.
He would have been after.
Emily just found All the King's Men, that First World War thing, and it was 1999, so it's longer ago than I thought.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Available on Amazon, and I would recommend it highly. Yeah. So, sorry, Chris, what were you saying?
No. So we're saying about the coach, weren't we? So it was actually moving. There wasn't a scene in the background. It's actually moving when they're filming. I wasn't sure if they were
going up and down the carriageway.
Yeah, static or whatever. But it's actually going. You're actually going properly for real.
Yeah, they just had a handheld camera on board the coach, following up and down and doing various shots. Yeah.
And then obviously the coach that explodes. That's a second coach, presumably, is it?
Well, I've been asked that a few times. I didn't think it was. I thought they actually blew up that coach. I might be wrong, but I thought that was the coach they blew up. Is my memory. But I seem to remember that we, like I say, I couldn't swear to it. But my memory is that we drove into that car park in that coach, got off it, and they laced it all up. And of course, it was a big day. We were told it was going to be blown up, but it wasn't general knowledge around the town, obviously. And of course, wherever we went, the populace of Margate came and followed us and stood around, and they were kept well back. But they didn't know it was going to blow up. So when it went up, there was a few very genuine reactions from the people in Margate itself. Yeah.
You're near the back, I think, when there's a scene of you all off the coach, isn't there, staring at the coach? I think you're near the back somewhere, aren't you? I've noticed.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to spot. I was stalking your whole episode. I thought, right, where is he? Because it's good that you had a yellow jacket on, because you do stand out, actually, don't you? Is that done on purpose or not? Not particularly. You didn't think?
Oh, it was just. I mean, they told us to bring our own gear. They told us the sort of things to wear, but they had wardrobe with there as well, and they gave some of us extra items. So that yellow jacket.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, this is the picture that started it all off. The picture that I hadn't seen ever since it was taken.
You'd never seen? Really? You'd never seen that?
No, I'd never seen it. I remember it being taken because, of course, not everybody is in the shot, are they? I mean, Shrieker's missing. Uncle Albert's missing. Rodney.
You're next to the guy with the red shirt, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, you've got a Union Jack hat, haven't you, later on?
Yeah, I've got it in that picture as well.
Is that in the picture? Yeah.
Take me there. Yeah, Mickey Pearce is there. Denzel. Boise and Del Boy in the front. Yeah.
Mike, when you get a minute, if you email us the pictures, what I can do is I can edit the picture in as you talked about it, if you know what I mean, like when we put it up. So if you could email us the pictures, that'd be great.
Okay, just
Chris will give us the details. And well, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, Mike. It's been great to speak to you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Really interesting.
Choking. Got to me, my hay fever's backing me up. I'm ravaged. But it's been a real pleasure. So thank you. A lot of nice memories there.
Yeah.